All right, it is 3:02. So a warm good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for joining us on this webinar on a Wednesday afternoon. Before we get the session on, just a few housekeeping rules around the session. Uh, this is a 60-minute session, including 10 minutes for question and answers. Towards the end, please drop your questions in the chat. I have a couple of colleagues who will be monitoring these chats, and we'll pick your questions from there. And if you have questions for any specific panelist here, please let us know about that as well. All participant mics and cameras will remain off throughout the session just to ensure smooth experience. You can post your sessions questions anytime on the chat window, and the session is being recorded. So those of you who got pulled into unplanned meetings, random meetings, we'll share the recordings any which ways for everybody. So you'll have a recording of it as well. And if you face any technical issues, audio or screen glitches, please mention about it in the chat. So thank you. And with that, we kick off this session. The agenda or the topic of today's webinar is a step-by-step roadmap specifically on scope 3 emissions for pharma and chemical companies, and we have really kept it very specific to the sector. The reason why, because in India, chemical and pharmaceutical companies together actually value over 350 billion US dollars. These sectors are very critical when it comes to act as an engine of export, innovation, jobs, and yet they are one of the most complex process-driven sectors, which, when we start talking about GHG or carbon accounting, and then we get into concepts like scope 3, it only proves far more challenging when we talk about these sectors. So in today's conversation, we have veterans and we have a young team as well here to deep dive into not only lofty pledges, but more actionable items and playbook items on how suppliers, businesses can report, measure, reduce their emissions while everything matching to the business profitability. And with that, let's dive into from complex to clarity and from targets to tangible action in today's session. I'll take a minute to introduce our panelist here. Sanjay Choudhary. Sanjay Choudhary is a veteran chemical engineer and sustainability lead. He comes with 40 plus years in fertilizers and chemicals, pioneered and established environmental management system and digital transformation initiatives. Sanjay brings strategic shop floor operational perspective on embedding sustainability with core manufacturing and supply chain. Sanjay has worked with corporates like National Fertilizer Limited, a PSU, Tata Chemicals, OCP, TCL, Imacid in Morocco, and Indorama Corporation. In his stint in different companies, he has worked in various functions from project, technology, manufacturing, strategic planning, ESG management, and was also a committee member of Global Indian Industry Forum. Welcome, Sanjay, sir. Thank you so much for taking time out and speaking to us and deep diving into this. Next, let me introduce to you Mr. Sudhir Agarwal. He is an independent consultant for green technology and smart manufacturing. Sudhir comes with 4 decades of leadership in fertilizers and chemicals. Sudhir is a chemical engineer and was also an executive director of India Glycols Limited. Sudhir now advises on green technology, smart manufacturing, and brings deep operational expertise in aligning a lot of manufacturing practices. Welcome, Sudhir, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. And then we have young Aanchal Mathur with us. She is senior manager at ESG for ESG at InCorp. Aanchal holds an MA in development practice from Terry University. She has 8 years of experience in ESG assurance, carbon transition, capacity building, and reporting. Aanchal actually specializes in advising C-suite leaders on sustainable strategies and has worked with 80 plus clients on sustainability reporting and strategic initiatives. She is also a member of CII subcommittee on ease of doing business and responsible business, and she serves as an advisor and faculty with ICAI on sustainability initiatives. So welcome so much, welcome Aanchal on today's session. Thank you so much for taking time out for us. I am going to be moderator. So I myself, Ambalika Gupta, I am Director of Sustainability. I have been in sustainability for 11 years across different sectors, verticals, and I represent Snowkap. We are a net zero tech platform, which you will hear about us and the challenges and why do we exist. But the idea of today's session is to deep dive into far more actionable items as we embark on this journey. So with that, let's kick this off. My first question here would be to Mr. Sanjay Choudhary, right? Sanjay, you have 40 years in industry and you have witnessed early foundation days of industry, as well as its evolution and maturity, right? So how do you think industry has evolved over these 4+ decades and from a sustainability along with it, right? From going from a non-existent term into a broad room strategy. How has this concept evolved? Sanjay, over to you.
Thanks, Ambalika. And good afternoon to everybody. 40 years is a long period, but with the new AI and all the rest coming, we feel very, very young and a lot of new things happening. So the past experience only gives an input to the new efforts that are happening. When you look at the chemical industry, it's really complex. And to just give a flavor of it, the chemicals, the basic chemicals, it starts with the basic chemicals, which in which the inorganic chemicals and the organic chemicals. The inorganics are made from mined material and extensive use of energy, power and electric power and heat. The organic ones are made from hydrocarbons, oil and gas, and that same acting as an energy as well as the process input feedstock. And so we begin with almost about 100 to 200 basic chemicals plus commodities plus intermediates, and then end up into almost 100,000 compounds, chemicals being made. 6,000 are very heavily traded. Remaining are being manufactured in small scales, small sizes, fragrances, flavors, fine chemicals. So the complexity is enormous in terms. I think we can understand it. The chemicals are gaseous, the chemicals are liquid, the chemicals are solid, submicron, micron, encapsulated, bottled, pressurized containers, shipped, taken by railways, taken by tankers, taken by trucks, and primary, secondary, tertiary transportations through various storages and dispatches and in the whole supply chain. And also it is transported by pipeline and conveyors. India has got one of the longest conveyor in the world, 21-kilometer conveyor for ore to be transported from the mine to the plant, 21 miles, I believe. So we considering this complexity, we see that the industry is evolving. If you think of India, 1901 was the first Assam oil company established, not long back. Then Tata Chemicals was the first inorganic complex, 1949. And then it rapidly expanded with methylene crackers, with petrochemicals being put up. And we have a large manufacturing base. The country is crisscrossed with pipelines of petroleum products, natural gas. And everybody may be now sitting on a pipeline in the country. So this is the way we are rapidly moved. And over the period, what has happened is the technology has advanced. The digitalization is taking place. Catalysts have improved. the process intensification has happened. So the capacities are increased. When we are talking just 20, 30 years back, a 1,000-ton ammonia plant, it is now reaching 3,000 tons of ammonia per day from one stream. So it's happening in all chemicals. Size is increasing, and it's a completely decentralized industry. There are very few clusters which are now coming up where they are integrated in terms of raw materials and the value chain. So I can say that we are still trying to understand the value chain. Complexity is so huge that we are still grappling with it. What is the value chain and what are the value streams? So all the young engineers, when they will work on technology as well as on the ESG issues, will realize that they need to unravel this value chain. Then only the answers will come. The answers will come from the value chain because finally the emissions are getting transferred from one space to the other. And the last consumer, as an individual in pharma, I'm going to ask what I have consumed, what is my footprint. Every customer will have the right to ask. For pharma, each of individuals can ask us. That means there are billions of users of chemicals if you go into the value chain, and they will all be demanding that if I take your product, what I should be, how I should know what is the carbon footprint, water footprint, and these issues. And then what has happened over the last 50 years, there is an enormous number of accidents happened in industry. The Flexboro, the Union Carbide, and so safety came center stage. Then there was a lot of hazards related to chemicals. The international conventions came up. So we saw progression happening in terms of national international treaties coming up, government adopting those, the OSHA standard developing, the quality standards coming up, ISO standards coming up, the Indian standards came up, the ISI stamping came up, the green labeling is coming up. So there is a stakeholder engagement on this subject. And now the subject has moved to decarbonization.
Yeah.
And how we can eliminate the carbon, and then a lot of engagement and initiatives happening. That is what I have seen over the period. And incidentally, for interest sake, I can say I had been in the plant, which was the first world's largest green ammonia in FCI Nangal. Ammonia was produced by hydrogen produced from electrolysis using the Bhakra Nangal Dam power. That later on was suspended operation, but it was the first largest green ammonia in the world, 300 tons per day ammonia.
So, Sanjay, thank you so much for kind of giving us a quick, review and walk through the initial days of this industry to, till date, how the scenario looks like. On green ammonia, I'll come back to you because I have a question, but I'll kind of hop over to Sudhir. And Sudhir, you have been round about same time as Sanjay in the industry, right? And Sanjay spoke about how even with his Tata is what Sanjay mentioned, right? They started and then they rapidly scaled up operations. So tell us, like, what are the complexities when I talk about from an operational level, right? From a company that decides to be a mid-sized company forever, or for a company that rapidly wants to scale up, what are the challenges that we look at? And, how can we try and plan for it right in the early days? Sudhir, you are sorry, on mute.
Yeah, sorry.
Perfect. No
So
problem.
good afternoon, everyone. So I think this is a very good question. You see, my experience is almost for 40 years, and incidentally, I have been to companies having single products, multiple products, and now I am working with some MSMEs also. Okay, so a lot of differences are there, and still people are struggling for getting carbon emission accounting for all these plants. I must say, when you have to start this exercise of sustainability in any company, a lot of challenges are there. The first and foremost, I think, is the awareness of the persons. Because generally, what people think that this is a job of some ESG person or some sustainability group. But operation and other functional teams are sometimes missing from the journey. So the journey should start, in fact, with the awareness and training of the all functional teams, and should have some type of coordination in between. So I must just I will just give few um liners what we can do just to have a very thorough and fruitful exercise for. So, this start from the appreciation of the sustainability concept itself, because generally people doesn't consider sustainability as an important thing in when you are operating the plant. They generally think of production, maintenance, and keeping the plant running. But that sustainability concept generally leaves behind. So we must appreciate what is the requirement of sustainability and how we can target our net zero targets and other requirements of the company. So then comes the installation of your target and KPIs. Generally, what happens, targets for operation maintenance are different, sustainability group targets are different. Until unless we merge these targets and work on the same platform, that everybody has to work for sustainability and reducing the carbon footprint, it will not go away. Okay, so and working in hand to hand is very, very important to any industry. You name any industry, maybe single product, maybe multiple product. Okay, and then comes the main issue of how accounting of carbon emission take should be there. Everybody is confused, especially in scope 3. Scope 1, scope 2 is quite simple, and most of the companies are now accounting for scope 1 and scope 2. But scope 3, you see the uh, carbon emission beyond your control. So when it is beyond your control, then control is with somebody else. So now you have to think of the ways how you get this data from the uh, either from the upstream side or from the downstream side after the sale of the product. So you have to be have some type of system established, maybe in the form of some programs, some empirical formulas, so that you can get the data from your supplier as well as from the customer side and put up for carbon accounting. So some type of system should always be available with the team. Just to when you are starting for this exercise. And most important thing when we consider about the supplier side, engagement of procurement team, because generally what happens, the team production and maintenance team give the specification of the product, but nobody talks about the ESG specs out of these products or raw materials. So it is very, very important the training and awareness of the your procurement team for selecting the uh, supplier in such a way which can supply product with a lower carbon footprint, with better transport facilities, so that your upstream carbon footprint is down. So until unless that procurement team is uh, included in the exercise, it will not happen, because you will just give the requirement and they will procure it.
Yeah. So I think, Sudhir, you've given us a good overview. We will dive into like how do I engage with my suppliers, and I will come back to you. But since we are still at an overview level of
Yeah,
this
yeah.
conversation, I have a question, and I'll move on to our next panelist, Aanchal. Right. So we saw the industry evolution. Sudhir spoke about what are the challenges or on the data piece, or trainings, awareness sessions, and other pieces, which is still like feel good things to do. But how I as an organization should even go about it, like from a strategic perspective, and then, think about like, why does it matter? Even at a strategy level, why should I be doing it? And then if, okay, let's do it, then how do I go about it? So, Aanchal, what do you?
Yeah, thanks, Ambalika, for the question. And I think this is a really great question. And I appreciate, the points covered by both Sudhirji and Sanjayji, because like you said, they are veterans and they've spoken from what really happens on ground. I have a little bit of a different experience here in terms of, I'm on the consulting side of things. So I work with multiple organizations and I've seen, not just one, say, but different, variety of challenges which can be unique to an organization. So to answer your second question first, why should I do it as an organization is very simple. You cannot be left behind. There is no option anymore. Like both of my co-panelists have also emphasized that it's no longer an option. You all have to be on the same page. You have to, be comparable to your peers. And there is a responsibility that has been laid on every organization, whether it's compliance or whether it's through your customers, right? There is no way around it, basically. So might as well jump on the wagon and start the story. But I think a lot of focus and energy goes, in my experience, within organizations in just collecting the emissions data and making sure that the data is correct. But what is forgotten usually is that organizational design and strategy is what makes it work. So even if my procurement team is absolutely on top of their game, and I have a great ERP system which is capturing all data. But if my management board does not approve budgets for me to reduce my carbon emissions, it's no use. I can, okay, track it, report it, but what am I going to do with it? So I work with organizations where, their stakeholders are reading their BRSR and sustainability reports every year. And as soon as the reports are published, we are getting questions on behalf of the company or via the company that, okay, last year you reported X amount of scope 3 emissions. This year you have reported X plus Y amount of quantity of scope 3 emissions. What is it that you're doing about it? So stakeholders are no longer just interested in seeing that you're tracking the data, but they really want to know what you're doing with it. And I feel that there are few layers through which this has to be streamlined at the strategy level of the organization. So first would be, placing ownership of the leadership of the company. Like Sudhirji mentioned that, procurement team may be very well versed, but the other departments are not so well versed, right? And I 100% agree with that. So across leadership, I don't think that sustainability can any longer sit as a CSR function or just as an EHS function or just as, with the procurement team or with the safety team. It needs to be ingrained into business strategy and have definable KPIs across leadership. So when you have your CFO, procurement head, and operations lead, all tracking scope 3 metrics with the same seriousness as delivery timelines and revenues, you will see the real shift. That's what I have seen in my experience. And a lot of our successful clients have established sustainability steering committees or core groups, which have representation from management, representation at least one from the board, and from various heads of departments, right? So that, a trickle effect can happen. And not all responsibility is sitting with management or the board, but it is trickling down to all levels. And then they can sub-delegate it to, say, a sustainability working group to ensure that all of the KPIs are actually actioning across the organization. Ultimately, I feel and I agree with my colleagues that cross-functional collaboration is key. Without that, any agenda, any strategy, no matter how strong, is going to fail, and it's not going to show you any results. Second thing is that,
sorry.
yeah.
Sorry. Please,
Okay.
please complete.
Second thing is, just having strategy is going to be on paper. It has to be translated into processes. And a governance layer has to be established specifically for suppliers. To, I'll keep my answer brief for this one because I see we're already halfway through. Few things that I have done with my clients which have proven to be successful is one, integrate ESG data with ERP systems or whatever software that the company has. That is absolutely crucial. Second is there has to be a clear supplier governance layer, including a supplier code of conduct, including, a specific ESG aligned supplier onboarding process and checklist. So while you're onboarding your suppliers, I'm speaking as an organization who is looking at supply chain integration and not from the supplier point of view here. So when an organization is onboarding a supply chain partner, they need to fulfill certain criteria. And at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter, however, a sort of a review or assessment also has to happen based on the same criteria, which should decide, where that supplier will stand in terms of, being onboarded again the next year. However, like Sudhirji mentioned, that he's worked with MSMEs, and in India we have majority of the suppliers coming from either MSMEs or small scale. So this becomes a big challenge, and for that, a simple solution is to have a lot of trainings, lot of engagement activities, lot of capacity building sessions, and some companies go out of the way and train their MSME supply chain partners in identifying and tracking their data as well. And once you put the assurance layer on top of that, also looking at assurance as more of an internal control testing rather than satisfying the assurance provider, all of this becomes like correct and clear for everyone across the organization.
I thank you so much, Aanchal, because I was, you can see my expressions beaming right up there because your response has given me so many options to segue into so many parallel questions, but I'll try to tame my excitement here. But I have a follow-up question. So we understand the evolution of the industry, operational challenges, and then at a strategy level. And now let's get into the, dirtier end of real work. And that really brings me to Sanjay, to you, right? So when we speak about scope 3, right, it's largely vendors that we are talking about. 80% of the emission comes from scope 3 category 1. There are 15 categories. Aanchal made a reference to suppliers governance and code of conduct. That is something I'm parking on the side. I am coming to you, Sanjay, to get more insights on number one, where should I look for data when it comes to suppliers, and how do I engage with them?
Interesting. When you say value chain, the scope 3 travels from right from the basic chemicals to intermediates to commodity chemicals to specialties to pharma to life care chemicals, a chain which grows in number and which at the same time the product is moving, but the data is not moving. The only thing that ISO 9000 brought in, that the quality certificate is moving along with the product. That's become mandatory. At one time, we had to wait for the quality certificate, and that too, a standard quality certificate was being received. Now it is specific for the product that is reaching, the batch that is reaching. Great change has happened. So now we need to imagine that how the scope 1 and 2 from one phase to the other can move with this material. Whether as a label, like the calorie label I have got on my eating food material, I can see how much calorie it contains. Same way, the product that moves from one phase to the other, if it gives it goes with a tag, which can be scanned, and you get the scope 1, scope 2 of that particular previous value chain. So that could be an interesting. So the playing ground, we have the habit of playing on many grounds, and so we, as a professional, get lost. My ERP ground, my ESG reporting ground, my annual reporting ground, and so many playgrounds to play on. So our thinking should be, how can we have a common platform which can speak with each other, can share the information each other, can capture the information which is being captured by the other platform, whether it is financial platform, whether it is COCs, whether it is ERP system, procurement database. I think there are a lot of opportunities. So now the integrator, who will integrate this? That's where the innovation will have to come. That's where the AI has to come in, because AI has the ability to handle a lot many informations than a manual or individually we can handle. And so when I was looking at value chain, I had been in the plant which processes soda ash, an industrial soda chemical, maybe 5 million tons a year globally produced. A very simple basic chemical. We take salt and we take limestone and we make soda ash. Limestone is mined, and in fact, in many places, it is from the captive mine. The salt is harvested from the salt forms. And incidentally, the soda ash producer in India is the largest utilizer of solar energy in the salt farms. Millions of tons of salt is used for producing soda ash. So interesting. Our value chain was very simple. We could compute and be happy that we are almost carbon free. Only the mining energy and this thing, that thing we could all pull together. And then when you move to ammonia, it also was simple. I was in ammonia production facility. Take natural gas, use it as fuel and also as a feedstock, you are done. The product is out. The CO2 which is emitted in ammonia production absorbed into urea. I'm comfortable. I'm still in control of the information. But when you got into specialties, then the challenge started. The source is not known, where the input, the raw material is coming. It comes through a so scattered and diverse supply chain that the traceability becomes difficult. Who was the supplier to that wholesaler, and wholesaler brought from where? Many of the product inputs are mixed together. Like some chemicals, they come mixed together. Urea from different producers come and get mixed together and it's sold as a bulk, unless it is packed and labeled and other things. So when I was looking at a very interesting chemical, pharmaceutical ingredient called paracetamol, a huge production, 300,000 tons a year it is produced. It is like a bulk chemical, a widely used pharma ingredient. Relatively simple value chain, but starts basic with phenol and acetaldehyde and nitric acid. So if you start seeing all the value chain and start adding up, phenol data is available, nitric acid data is available, acetate data is available, good. I capture it. Then in between, there is processing, one or two processing, I can go to them. They are captive producer processors, I can get the data. And I think for a paracetamol value chain, a data can be put together. Only issue is data is in different formats. Somewhere it is manual, somewhere it is in a system which cannot talk to each other, somewhere it is resident in ERP. So any mechanism which can resolve this, I think the bulk of the problems will get resolved. The long-term issue on scope 3 would be the basic issue is the feedstock, oil and gas, how to get away from it. So as a paracetamol, there are now possibilities that it could be bio-based.
Yeah. Yeah. So Sanjay, some common points that I'm getting out of it is both you and Aanchal happen to mention ESG data and ERP systems. So how I'm understanding is it's not the data that exists somewhere out or that does not even exist at all. The data actually exists. We basically need a system to capture it, which ideally might be an ERP system for large enterprises. In MSME, small enterprises or mid-size enterprises, that is the system that's also needed. Right. But then that's just an information. I understand you gave a very good reference of paracetamol, which is definitely blend of certain chemicals and salts together. So the procurement or material information is definitely there, what ERP will capture, right? And then there is also an information on the blending process or the heating. And so there is a process information, there is a material information that we are looking at, right? How do I get this information from my suppliers is really the scope 3 challenge, right? So how do I engage with my suppliers? We generally do suppliers meet, our procurement teams do supplier meet, right? But it is nearly impossible for me to imagine a procurement guy who has to manage a product portfolio, who has to also get the cost and the quality checks and approve the vendor, to also know so much to get these data in from the vendor. So how do we engage with the vendor and with our procurement team? So just like we are short on time, so just if you can give me crisp 2-3 action points around it, right?
So it boils down to collaboration. And collaboration happens as a value add. Whenever you collaborate, there's a value addition. When you collaborate, you use your suppliers, they have the confidence that you will be your long-term buyer. So when the expectations are exchanged and the methodologies are clearly defined and support is provided, technical support, that how you can get this information around and what form we want, and for what purpose we will be using. The confidence in the collaboration improves between the supplier and the customers. Now, are there any initiatives? Yes. Yes, we saw ISO 9000 on quality, a huge exchange of information on quality. There is an external audit. One can know how this company is doing in terms of its quality adherence. Then there is an initiative called Together for Sustainability, product carbon footprint. That's an established initiative by maybe the members are limited, but they have come together that we all will exchange our product carbon footprint with each other. Now, the lead is taken by large companies, multinationals, with a huge turnover, and the suppliers know that this company we can't get away from. Let us join them. And there's a great handholding being done by them. The initiative itself is a great handholding. Then EcoVadis, you have seen a lot of engagement happening. So that's the way it will happen. Expectations have to be clear, methodology has to be clear and standardized. Third is it has to be part of the agreement of the purchase agreements. It will happen, it will move.
I am so sorry. Were you no? Okay, so I'm so glad that you speak about methodology, because also from it is so tough to expect that everybody in this landscape in different roles and departments will know about the methodology. They will definitely know about their process. They will definitely know about the material they are procuring. Where does this material sit as an information in the ERP or procurement systems? And then the process is still a common process understanding. But that's also the space where we at Snowkap come in. So we actually have a digital tool which integrates with your ERP system. The platform actually has the science of it translated into different equations and algorithms for rightful allocation, and that's what we do at Snowkap. But following up on that point, I would like to quickly segue into Sudhir sir. So Sudhirji, you've been in this place, and you've been working on with MSMEs specifically is also something that you mentioned. So if you
Yeah,
had to give three, just three quick actions for any MSME to kind of get onto this journey, right? They are limited on budget, they are limited on capabilities as well, and to employ best resources. So what are going to be your insight for MSME who now has to actually jump onto the sustainability bandwagon? So what your insight or first three
yeah,
steps for them would be?
yeah. Thank you. You see, MSME is almost contributing 30% to the GDP. So it is a big chunk. And carbon emission out of MSME sector will be huge. But I am in contact with many companies who are working in this sector, and I am really sorry to say, abs- except a few. Nobody, in fact, are aware of the ESG protocols, GSG protocol or ESG protocol, whatever you say. They are least bothered because they are always in crunch of money, resources. They are not having any information about it. So government has already given some free certification courses on ESG to them, but I have seen uh, that they are not really interested to come for free certificate courses also. We have to basically push them to join these courses. So
Yeah,
I
but
think
so these are also because as an MSME owner, I want to do my business and earn a living, right? So
until unless proper training guidance is given to them, they will not come out. They will just consider it to be a burden, additional burden on them. But so now, I think responsibility of the government and the all industry association comes into picture, that they support the MSME sector for better training. They are providing them tools for capturing the data in such a way that even a small set of people can also uh, capture the data as per the requirement, and some type of certification system. And I am also of the opinion, if like one top 1000 listed companies are required to give the scope one, scope two rating data. There should be some uh, incentive to MSME also to give that carbon data from their area or their industry.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think then everybody will be happy to invest on this, and I think uh, there should be some start of the journey.
So that's a good insight basically to kick off with MSME. He training lagega, right? There is no other way around it. You
Training,
have to have some
incentives, and
awareness.
support. In,
Yes.
yeah,
But I have another follow-up question for you, Mr. Sudhir, ki in your role as an ED, right? At how does, like, it's a very senior leadership position, right? Top management.
yeah, yeah.
And how does sustainability actually sits on an agenda? KRA, KPI, and then because Aanchal spoke about it should delegate and it should percolate and
Absolutely.
supervisor tak jana chahiye. But how important was it for real in your agenda?
I think in my last instant with India Glycols, this is a multi-product company. At a time when joined this company, there was almost 800 products in the portfolio. And these products were basically bulk product, specialty chemical, formulation, and lot many type of industries being catered. Okay. So you can just see the quantum of data required for assessing all carbon emission from scope 1, even scope 1, scope 2 are very difficult to capture. Okay. So when as a senior leadership see sustainability as a major tool, they consider sustainability not a basically not a burden. If you honestly implement sustainability targets or try to reduce the carbon footprint, it will certainly add to your profitability. There is no doubt about that, because carbon emission is just a waste of energy or waste of your resources. So you have to reduce these resources anyhow by reducing either in the form of you have to switch over to some green raw materials from the fossil based raw material. So ultimately that will bring down the LCA of your product, and then you have to basically install or implement many things in your plant. Like smart manufacturing is one of the tools which can
Yeah,
improve the
yeah.
efficiency of the plant, can reduce the wastages, improve the
Yes.
productivity. Uh, Similarly, ISO, what Mr. Choudhary has told, ISO is a good foundation for everything. It makes the system in such a perfect condition. Your all type of quality, environment, safety concept are basically taken care.
So if I
So
can
you
summarize,
have to see from that angle.
yeah, so if I can summarize, as in, of course, seems like high up on an ED agenda from a KRA KPI perspective, but also because it was a part of how business operates as usual.
Absolutely.
You spoke about raw material or green energy or ISO standards, which basically take care from a system and process perspective of such things. And probably, you spoke about raw materials, but then there are packaging, there is circularity of the
Packaging.
materials
Yeah.
as well. So while we understand raw materials is definitely critical item, but if I look at an alternate to my raw material, the efficacy of my drug, the shelf life of my product, there are a lot of other things that need to go through the entire testing and clinical trial phase and other bits. But that's a good point because that brings me to my second question, and this one is for you, Aanchal. I have actually two questions for you, Aanchal. I'm going to pose it. Please answer, whichever you feel like. So from raw material is of course one category, or probably vendors is just one category under scope three, right? Maybe I can do nothing about my raw materials. Maybe I can do nothing about certain chemicals or certain vendors even. there is a monopoly of vendors as well. So I cannot do anything about them. But how then can I still go about reducing my scope 3, which is other categories as well, right? So that's my question number one, if you knew, right? And because a while back, Sudhir was talking about MSME. So if I'm a mid-sized entity and I really want to build my business, scale up, I want to get some fundings, and I want to be ambitious with my sustainability as well. What are the options that are available for me? So those are your two questions. Please, over to you. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Ambalika. I think I'll take the first question first because it's more in continuation what Sudhirji has been speaking about. So there are two categories that I would specifically like to discuss here, which are both transportation, right? Upstream transportation and distribution, category 4, and downstream transportation distribution, which is category 9. In my experience, what I have seen is that a lot of the times what happens is that companies are not able to either fully measure, either they don't pick up these categories only because it is highly complex, it is sitting with so many different vendors and partners, or they are they are collecting like this data in a very very small scale fashion because of the sheer difficulty of collecting this data. But I personally feel that these are gold mines of scope 3 reduction possibilities for a company. Let me give you a few examples very quickly to talk about this. So there is a very fascinating case study of which compares two pharma products being shipped from India to South Africa. And this is a cold chain case study. So this study compared your standard transportation, right, versus temperature sensitive air transportation, which is required for a lot of pharmaceutical products, as we all know. Now, the sheer difference in carbon emissions in both of these was a massive 235 times. And yes, and it was purely due to the transportation mode and cold chain needs. And I think both the Sudhirji and Sanjayji will have an on-ground reality of this, that how much higher the emissions are just by your mode of transportation. And I think it is reasonable to conclude that how we transport matters as much as what we transport. Right. So Sudhirji spoke about conducting LCAs of your product. That is essential, I feel, today. You should know how much your product is costing you in terms of emissions, but please include cradle to grave and not cradle to gate. Go beyond your gate. Measure what your transportation is costing the world in terms of carbon emissions. That is absolutely critical. Now, another very good example I came across is of Novartis, and they have done an exceptional job, I feel, in optimizing upstream logistics. And so basically, they cut down thousands of shipment a year just by optimizing their routes and loads. Okay, so yes, so instead of doing one-way routes just delivering, they optimize the routes in such a way that the same vehicle would also pick up and come back, so on and so forth.
Reverse logistics, yeah.
Correct. And this alone saved them 1,400 tons of CO2 in a year, which is massive, right? And another very simple tweak they did is that they converted all their power purchase agreements into virtual agreements for a year, right? And no paper-based agreements. So very simple tweaks, very simple changes, but I feel this is a very great example of data-led, process-led process level optimization.
Because this is something that you are doing daily in and out without even acknowledging the fact that there is so much of emission that is also happening. And these are your first set of low-hanging fruits probably where you can look into. Interestingly, you spoke about, the complexity even at this level because there are too many vendors and systems involved. There must be large logistic company which have their own logistic systems, but that's where we at Snowkap we kind of allow that multi-partner ecosystem to come into play. Moving on to the second question, Aanchal. So I want to get some fundings. Yeah.
So moving on to that, I think I would like to cover it at a more of an overall level in terms of what strategically the government of India has been doing. Of course, in the RBI plays the central role if we talk about the Indian context, and RBI has, in the past 3-4 years alone, if you see, the change has been significant. If I can break it down, there are 3 levels of change that the RBI has brought about. One is, of course, regulatory, which is compliance based in nature. Then you have institutional level changes, and very interestingly, product innovation as well. So in 2021, RBI set up a sustainable finance group to start building awareness around climate risk and ESG linked finances, where in 23, they formally announced ESG frameworks, which required certain banks to factor in ESG criteria before making their lending decisions. So I have had clients who wanted to raise funds through, say, through an HSBC or an HDFC or an ICICI, and they were given a set of questions to fill out. And the bank had to be, satisfied with the responses before they could reimburse those loans to, my clients. And I've seen this great shift happening. And also there is a rebate in the interest rate if you fulfill certain criteria, that the bank has laid out. Now, RBI's approach, I feel, is really good as a starting point because one, it's focused on building capabilities so that the banking system and the financial system also understands and start measuring ESG risks, which is critical. And it places a prudential oversight, so that the climate and sustainability risks are taken care of. Second, at the institutional level, I think I want to give the example of SBI. Because obviously it's the largest, public sector bank that we have. They have made ESG assessments mandatory for large borrowers, right? Listed companies, the cap is 100 CR and unlisted it's 500 CR, right? ICICI also has set up an ESG office and social and environment management framework, so on and so forth. So we are noticing a move, from ESG just being an extra disclosure to a core credit decision driver also. It's become very, very central. And of course, we all know about Western investors. Needless to say that it's trickled down to India at a strategic level and coming from RBI now.
So we are at a very critical junction because we have 7 minutes to go. The Q&As are lined up. We might not be able to take all of them, but we will personally respond to each one of them as well. I will take up this one question because, of course, we spoke at length about suppliers and other things. And this question is for, all three of you, but from a different lens of view, or from a POV, as they say, at point of view, right? So this is specifically about supplier governance and code of conduct and the process piece, Aanchal, that you hinted earlier in your discussion. And there is at length what Sudhir and Sanjay also spoke about, training and incentivization. I'm going to give you crisp half minute for you guys, and Aanchal, for you to basically say it more from a code of conduct process policy perspective, because it's strategic and backbone to anything at the process level. Sanjay, to you from an incentivization perspective, like why would my supplier give me a data about how much energy they consume? And Sudhir, to you, because you've been in that ED position, as in what should a supplier be fair in asking as a return of ROI on the kind of information he's providing? So crisp half minute to you guys. Aanchal, we'll start with you on the policy piece first.
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, you want me to answer one, how to go about creating a supply chain policy and how to sort of enforce that as well. Okay. So based on my experience with working, across industries and not just talking about pharma industry here, like I said in my first response also, the first step, and I think Sanjay ji also has covered it, the first step has to be the identification itself of your value chain. The value chains can be so vast and spread out that the company's management or the team or core team of ESG is not really aware of what all categories of suppliers I have. So it becomes absolutely impossible to create a code of conduct for entities that you are not fully aware about. And that's ideally not fair, and it will not possibly result in the outcome that you're wishing for. So first step is identify the entire length and breadth of your value chain, both upstream and downstream. Identify the various subcategories that they fall under, And in the Indian context, identify which are the top 2% that you will need data from in the coming years, or say maybe even next year. Second is there has to be a workshop or a training bi-yearly, quarterly. We are doing such programs for a lot of our clients where we prepare modules which can be shared in bulk with thousands of supply chain partners to help them, one, understand the supplier code of conduct. It breaks it down, the technical language, and helps them sort of get their declarations in place, because they have to sign declarations on the supplier code of conduct that I understand this and I will abide by it. So we conduct trainings to help the suppliers do that. So companies need to look at both the things. First, know who your value chain partners are, and two, help them be onboarded to the agenda that you have finalized for your company. I'll keep it crisp to this.
Thank you. Thank you. Sanjay, moving on to you next. Incentivization.
No, it is like a dialogue between the senior leadership and the operating teams, as well as the suppliers and the consuming industries, the converters. What is the business case? Unless there is a business case, nobody will come around. Now, for a business case, it has to be a license to operate case, where the government and regulators can come in. That you can only operate if you use this much of renewable. The Bureau of Energy Efficiency, they came forward with those 5-star, 2-star, 4-star schemes. There are approaches where the government can come in and say, pay or take the liability, that is the consent to operate, which currently is not including scope 1, scope 2 in reporting or limiting your emission. So consent to operate, then comes consent to grow. Now consent to grow is given by investors and the shareholders. I think enough pressure is building up from investors for consent to grow. They are accepting the way you are doing it, a business, but they are not going to accept the growth, supporting investment in growth without a commitment to the climate change. Second thing going to happen. Third is the risk perspective. Now the risk perspective will come from the carbon taxes, the mechanisms like CBAM. I think a significant risk will come in the future. Carbon taxes, if you go, it is going to make the whole world hazy. But then there are realities. It is happening. It may take time. In the process, the collaboration between the supply chain, because nobody wants to disrupt his own supply chain. He wants his good boys to improve further. And so they will need to get together. And the big brother will have to take the responsibility.
I like those antidotes you're using, Sanjay, but I will have to stop you right there. Sudhir, you have just 30 seconds, so please.
Yeah, I think suppliers sometimes is very, you can reluctant to supply the data. So if you are a good company and you have to meet your targets, sometimes you have to give the incentives to them. But you see, this data, if all carbon accounting is taken as a revolution across the country, so this particular data will be available with the supplier also for their products as scope 1, scope 2, whatever. So there should not be issue after some time when everybody is talking about on the same line, then there should not be an issue. But till date, it is not there. We may have to consider based on the business case what Mr. Choudhary has said, because and it also depends the quantum of material and how much is the incentive to be given. That has to be negotiated, in fact.
Thank you so much, Sudhir. I know there is a question by you, Ajay. We will write back to you on the response, Ajay, ki how procurement teams can really take the responsibility of getting into the scope 3 reduction. But just because we are short in time already, we've stretched, we are right here. I want to summarize that clearly something that some critical items that came through is that number one, you cannot turn a blind eye to it because this is something that your peers are doing. This is what is giving you a competitive edge, and you want to stay relevant to your peers. Training and awareness basically sits at the foundation level. Pata hona chahiye tabhi kaam hoga. So the training is foundation. I think the team at InCorp and the teams at Snowkap, they are fully trained professionals and experts in the space which go out and give these trainings as well. And the organization design was the beautiful concept that I heard, or that is why some companies grow and some companies don't grow, because the way they are structured. And Sanjay, sorry, Ajay, आपके question का जवाब उसमें मिलेगा कि how procurement का, where the procurement sits in the organization structure, what are the roles and deliverables expected out of procurement will address that requirement. And the leadership of the team, ESG data to sit in ERP systems. Systems is critically the way, because otherwise, अगर आज आप manual करते हैं, you do it using Excel, then it is still a person dependent. So you need a system that is intelligent enough so that you don't really have to go out and scout for people with the relevant knowledge or skills or GHG protocol ka understanding, emission factor understanding, computational models understanding. But with that said, this is the summary. We definitely heard from Aanchal about upstream and downstream. Those are low-hanging fruits for any company to start on their scope 3 journey of reduction. So, reverse logistics, route optimization, and then, of course, there were concepts of recycled packaging, circular material, and other bits that we heard today. But with that said, thank you so much. We will reach out to you in case you want to have any one-on-one specific conversations, or if you have any concerns in specific use cases that you want to write to us about. You can write to us at marketing. If I can have the slide, guys. So you can write to us, reach out to us. Thank you so much for your time. I thank my panel here. Aanchal, all the thanks to you. Sanjay and Sudhir, thank you so much for taking time out and giving us your precious insights and so much of relevant experience and knowledge to our listeners here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Balika and Sudhir ji, Sanjay ji, both of you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Look forward to more discussions and engagement and collaboration within the organization, outside the organization.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Welcome.